Hey, my name is Downtown Brown. You're listening to Headcanon Graps, and I want to talk to you all today about an idea I've been swirling around in my head lately. At first, it grew when the rumors about Bobby Lashley and MVP signing with AEW and the potential of them creating a Hurt Syndicate, another Hurt business, if you will, and then the confirmations and the all elite graphics and all that later with the group now being formed and thus now it's November 21st. We had Dynamite just last night. Swerve came back to attack Lashley with a chain to get the other upper hand. And though I love where the story has slowly been progressing, I can't help but find my mind and myself wandering forward into the future. And so I want to present a call of action to one Anthony Tony Khan specifically when it comes to this storyline and what potential I think he has brewing on his roster because they started what in 2019 and they have grown a very strong roster of talent up and down the board, including a plethora of African American talent that are in different places in their career. And so when we're looking at that, you have people who are just starting off, you have people who are building up and they're starting to get to that mid card to upper mid card levels. You have people who they have taken and made main eventers out of, and they have main eventers who are now trying to reestablish themselves and also establish others. And so when we look at the AEW environment, I think there's a lot of different elements that if Tony Khan was to move them around in the right way, we could have a different boom on our hands for the company. But I think we should go backwards and talk about how AEW originally was incepted as the alternative. And in 2019, they were created to be something different than the WWE had. And so eventually, that success that AEW had was watched, observed by the competition, and whether it was just listening to giving the fans what they want or taking different ideas that they liked and saw from the other competition, the mainstream took from the underground, and so then the underground is now coming off more like mainstream. And so that amongst just other details and things that happened with AEW in these last few years, I don't really want to get into those parts because it doesn't really serve my story or what I'm talking about right now. And also it's just stuff I'm tired of talking about and I'm tired of hearing about. And so we can move past it in my personal opinion. WWE has had a lot of success lately when it comes to the energy, the fan engagement, the excitement around the product, and having a lot of different big returns and big storylines that not only affect the main their actual story, but also affect other wrestlers that are now no longer even a part of that storyline, and they're still feeling the effects time after time, referencing basically the bloodline storyline and what that was able to do for WWE's product overall. Well, why can't AEW have their own thing like that? But also, I don't want us to look and try to copy them because we don't need to be WWE light with stuff. And so, why not look at the concept of the alternative? And we started off as the alternative. We need to then reevaluate what the wrestling audience is looking for and what do we need to give back to them. And so I look at the rumors online and the discontent in certain talent who are in WWE who African American male talent at the top of the card is it's the representation is not there, and the spots and the time and the stories are not there for folks. And it's not just being around the world title, but it's also being having those integral stories that affect other people's stories and affect the overall show as a whole. We don't have that on WWE right now. And so, what if AEW was to create an alternative for fans that are looking for that? But you don't need to just focus on one thing because I like to use this as a reference point, and it's where my idea about all this kind of started brewing about this black boom that could be created in AEW. And it comes from Black Panther and Marvel's use of that character when it came to their movie and using the Black Panther franchise and building a strong film that, yeah, CGI was not perfect. Everything was not perfect across the board, but it was built and done honestly and right. And the audience came for it. And they didn't just come to see that movie, which, yeah, the budget of 200 million blowing out to 1.3 billion dollars. People showed up and showed up to watch it multiple times. And it wasn't just African Americans, it was people across the board coming to see this film. But it meant a lot more for African Americans watching it and seeing it. And when you look at that for the movie itself, it didn't just inspire African American males. It inspired women because it had strong women characters throughout the whole franchise that didn't need to answer to a man, didn't need to answer to anybody. They had their own motives and goals and respects to different things. And it inspired so many people who got to go see the movie. And so why not have something for that? That it wasn't just, oh, we have a segment of time where, oh, this is a great movie. We supported this movie. And you might say that same energy when it comes to then the Kofi Mania storyline, where we had a great one segment of it, but did it create some black boom for WWE? No, it didn't. But also the storyline and the support and the follow through and the follow up after was not there. But for the Black Panther franchise, we look at that. You look at people stuck around and say, okay, I love this. I want more. Oh, he's in Infinity War. I'm here for that. Oh, he died. Spoiler alert, he died in Infinity War. Well, will he come back in Endgame? Oh, there's Endgame. Oh, snap. I gotta see him in Endgame. And then even through a pandemic and a $200 million budget again, people showed out for Black Panther too, even with the fear of the virus. And so if you build something right and you build it properly for your fan base, people will come, show, and stay for it. And so there is that craving for it, but we don't just have to focus on the African American male talents, but we can boost everybody on the roster and boost everybody who's centered around this. And so when building this, we talk about pillars, and AEW is very familiar with the pillar system. I think it's great, but having MJF, having Darby Allin and Jack Perry and Sammy Guevara be your four young pillars you want to build your company around. But when you're building something, it's going to be way more than just four pillars to actually have that strong, great foundation. And so I think the concept was great, but I think we needed to add some more pillars. And there was some shadow adding of pillars here and there throughout the time periods after that. But I've got some pillars of my own that I'd like to talk to you about, and let's get your opinion about it. But first, we got to start with talking about who AEW has already built and some of the people who might float around this story involved. And so let's kick it off with first Willow, somebody who I believe AEW has been building and starting from 2021 when she got here, and they've been building her up. I think it's been great, but man, there's so much more to be done, not just at the TBS title level, but also at the world title level. And so definitely more to touch on that. Swerve, I think Swerve has been built, especially if you look at that Wrestle Dream 2023 to this year. I think what has been built for Swerve has been just such a switch in aura and in energy and importance that the company has just shown Swerve. And so for that ability for them to get him to that level and now he's an attraction for the company, I love that. I need more of that. And we'll get to that later too. Will Hobbs, somebody who we ain't even at the second chapter in that book if we keeping it a buck. Because yeah, that TNT title reign wasn't even enough. This man got his car flipped and then lost the title. Like that ain't enough. So we need more for Hobbs, and we haven't seen him in a while. It makes me sad even just thinking about him. But where's my man Ricky Starks at? I love that man. That is one of the the best up and comers they had on that roster. To me, one of those shadow pillars from back in the day, one of the best talkers from the up and coming generation. And man, what a presence in a FTW title reign and a world title challenge. The Owen is not enough. I love the fact that he won the Owen. I just need more from Ricky, man. I want to see more Ricky because that's my dog. So, but Private Party, we just had some more focus on Private Party in the last 6 months, and now them being the tag champions and going into full gear to defend them, hoping they retain and we get a little bit more out of them, and we keep pushing their growth as a team because they're not a homegrown team, but they got that homegrown feel to them, like an MJF or an Adam Page. And so that leads me to say the Acclaim, which the Acclaim have been tag champs, they've been trios champs. I I like the Acclaim, and I like them mainly for their homegrown nature and the fact that like that's an AEW original team. So like when I see them, I don't want to see them break up right now. I want to see a little bit more from them, but we need an evolution in the story. We need an evolution in the characters, and they have been slightly doing it here and there, but maybe we might need a bigger dramatic shift for the team for them to move on. But with all those people, and I know I'm leaving out tons of people on the AEW roster who have been built and have great stories, but these are the people I want to focus on, and the following people are going to be my pillars moving forward. And that kicks off with my biggest pillar of the whole thing, the Hurt Syndicate. And that's going to be Bobby Lashley. That's going to be Shelton Benjamin. That's going to be MVP. That's going to be Mercedes Monet, and then it's going to be Ricochet. And so Ricochet being that person, we're going to grow. And by the end of our whole Hurt segment, a Hurt Syndicate time, he will be a world champion, and we will have gotten Ricochet to where we want him to be in the company. Whether it's challenging already a world champion, and this is like in a year, 2 years maybe, but by the end of it, I think they should have that good run, and he should be fully on established by that. Maybe have a rivalry, just competitive rivalry with Lashley, where they don't like each other. Ricochet has the respect for everybody else in the group, but Lashley and him, they bump their heads here and there. But I think you might get Ricochet's involvement with this group soon, just for the sheer fact that maybe he quietly talked to the Hurt Syndicate in the back because I'm going against the Don Callis family. I'm no fool. Takeshita is going to have somebody there with him, so I might as well have some support with me and have somebody having my back. And why not bring him into the group that way? Don't let him be a fool and let him bring in the international title into the group. Mercedes bringing in the TBS title and the New Japan Strong title as well. And so have them bring in some gold and then maybe have Bobby MVP and Shelton feud with the Death Riders eventually. And I want to shout out the NWA podcast, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, because they talked about how back in 2014, WWE built up the Shield and they built up the Wyatts, and eventually they had a clash at Elimination Chamber 2014, one of my favorite matches of that year, probably my favorite match of that year, period. Such great energy before the bell even started. Everybody was waiting for them to clash because these two groups were just two raging bulls going through the roster, and now they met with each other. And so now you have the Death Riders, you grow them up, and you grow up the Hurt Syndicate and have them clash next year. I think would be a fun thing for the groups to have happen. But have that feud, maybe then once Bobby transitions out of that feud, maybe then have him go look at the world title once they get done with the Death Riders. And that'll probably be till in the next year, but have them grow, have Monet be basically one of the main stars of the group. She is not subservient to anybody. She is not being made a fool of, but she is yet the queen bee who keeps trying to slip by and keep her TBS title and keep the gold in the group and keep the prestige. And maybe you have her throughout this title reign eventually drop it. And then maybe she eyes the world title and works her way there, which we'll definitely tap in a little bit more later on. But let her keep growing and let her build a couple of forever rivals or a couple just strong rivals. And one of her forever rivals we'll get into definitely is Willow. And from their initial feud earlier this year going into Double or Nothing, I thought Willow showed so much. And so we have to make sure that those two are done right. And so when we're looking at Willow, Willow is my next pillar that I'm looking at. And she is going to be the forever rival of Mercedes Monet. And she will keep chasing her. Maybe sometimes we have to have some feuds in between, like we're currently on a break, but I think we are building our way back for her to chase after Mercedes again. And I thought that I thought she would already have been back there by now, but with that being said, I think the destination for her to face Mercedes and beat her for the title is going to be Grand Slam Australia next year, where you have her take the TBS title off of her, and then I thought maybe you have her have a little run with it, get to All in Texas, and had dropped it by then, worked her way back to a title match, and then beat Mariah May for it because those two have had this little rivalry going on of Mariah May stopping Willow from winning the Owen, Mariah May stopping Willow from winning the AEW Women's World Championship. And so having this competitive upstart rivalry between those two, I thought that would be a good thing to have Willow get the title off of her in the end. But I don't even want that anymore because what I actually want to see is I want to see Willow mirror Jay Lethal's ROH TV title run. And I want her to defend that belt, and build the importance of it. And then when she's ready and once the time is right, we have her challenge. Well, I'll just spoil something for later on. We'll have her challenge Mercedes Monet as world champion. And it'll be world champion versus TBS champion, and her not relinquishing the title, but her saying, hey, just as important. My title is just as important as yours, if not more. And I have made it just as important, if not more, through my wrestling and my work. And by beating you, I will become the world champion, but also I'm going to make this belt the most important belt in the company. And it also speaks on RVD's TV title reign and ECW too. But I want Willow to have that long TBS title reign, maybe the second longest, maybe not have her go as long as Jade, but have her hold that thing for a nice long while, challenge for the world title, and beat the world title and beat the world champion. Now, when it comes to who will be the world champion that Mercedes takes it off of for that story to reach that point, well, that's my girl, the forever champ. And I almost said a forever reign earlier because the forever champ, Athena, I think it's about time for her to drop her ROH title, which I think she will be soon. Once we get that off of her, I think we get to Grand Slam Australia, convenient event I've already talked about. Well, I think Mariah May and Tony Storm are going to have a nice little match at that show. And I think Mariah May is going to retain the belt. And at the end of that match, I think Athena walks out and makes her declaration that she wants a shot at the women's world title. And I think Athena is going to be the one to take it off of Mariah May in the end. With Athena doing that, holding the belt, and you can go one of two ways with this. You can have Athena hold it all the way to All in Texas and lose to Mercedes Monet, or you can have her lose the belt earlier on to Mercedes Monet in advance of All in Texas, and then have her challenge it All in Texas for the belt to then win that match and become the champion again for a two-time reign. I don't know. I've been bouncing it back and forth in my head. It's an idea, and but I see Athena getting that growth and moving up, and it's time to get her onto that main roster, not main roster, but get her onto AEW Dynamite proper full time, and have her being one of those pillars for the division because she's great on the mic, she's great in the ring, she's got presence, and for Willow and for Athena, should never join the syndicate at all. At no point they should ever. Maybe you can tease it, but their characters and their energy should always be this separate energy from that kind of nonsense. They might team together at one point, which would be a great story of the two rivals. At one point, Athena and Willow having to work together against Mercedes and the compadres that I will talk about later on. But I think it's an idea. So I made mention of the fact that Athena and Willow should never join the syndicate. Well, that's due to the fact that I do think we have one other person join the syndicate, and I think that's going to be Queen Aminata. But I think she initially starts her fight off maybe in a joining Willow and joining Athena in their quest to stop Mercedes. And in a moment where they all have her surrounded, maybe Queen turns on the other two and joins the syndicate to up her stock, up her brand. She's a queen, so of course she needs to have a kingdom, and she has not been able to build one on her own. And so now she looks to a group that has been doing that, and she wants to learn from them as well. And so she is the understudy at that point of the CEO and learning and growing. And then we build her up to have a mid card title reign and establish her at the mid card level. But then putting those seeds, planting them for the future of when she will then getting her to basically where Willow is now. So that way people are ready for either her to turn face again or to be that heel champion and push forward and become a world champion eventually. But let's put her in some spotlight. Let's get her some TV time. They can then have Mercedes Monet and Queen Aminata against Willow and Athena in some tag matches and whatnot. And you can build that up to be something fun and special. And that puts a new spotlight on her. And though she's not as big of a pillar as the other ones are, she's a pillar that's slowly being added upon. And is it more as more time has progressed, more is going to be expected of her. So we want to grow her at that point and continue growing that brand for her. But one person whose brand has been grown very strong is Swerve. And so keep growing Swerve. And the way they've been building the story, even with last night's angle of him coming back and attacking with the chain, I really do believe Swerve is losing to Bobby at full gear. And with that, I'm not mad if then Swerve just goes on this doubting himself streak. We feud with the Hurt Syndicate. We have him teaming with my last pillar that I'll talk about today, supporting them, fighting back and forth, doing his thing, but not having any, not creating any new groups. I don't need another mogul embassy or anything of the such. Swerve doing it on his own, but having allies and people he can trust in. And growing that for his character is something new that outside of Nana, he doesn't really trust much of anybody. And even the people he trusted before, he didn't really trust too far. He was willing to take out Keith Lee at a heart's no at the drop of a hat. He was willing to get rid of Parker Boudreaux and all of them when they couldn't do what he needed them to do. And so Swerve has had a hard time growing trust. And so to see that in him with the last pillar would be a great thing, alongside him growing himself back up and building his brand back up. And that's why I think he goes to the Owen next year, wins the Owen. And as long as the rules of the Owen, like this year, where the winner gets a shot at All In, if that works out and that's the case, let him go and win the Owen, go to All In Texas. And I want him to face the world champion at All In Texas, that being Hangman Adam Page. And I want him and Hangman to, I need y'all to do a redo because the biggest singles match you all can book for any wrestler in AEW is the exploding barbed wire death match. That is the biggest match. It's only happened once. And even that rivalry, in my opinion, the Mox and Omega rivalry was not at the level where, like, oh, we've this feud between Hangman and Swerve has surpassed the aggression and the intensity of that feud ever had. And so, if there's ever been a time for this company to redo that match and to get it right, you do it with Hangman and you do it with Swerve and you put them in that spotlight and you let them close and main event and you also let Swerve exercise the demon of I went to the biggest stadium show. I've been to the biggest stadium show two times now, once in a tag match, a tag coffin match that I lost, and I was closed in, and I lost in the main event. So let me actually get a dub at All In. And he exercises that demon as well, allowing him to then grow as a character. And then I think we may have him drop it to Bobby. And I think he goes 0-2 against Bobby for a certain time. And these are spaced out matches, not in a continuous one back to back to back. But I of the singles variety, I think he goes 0-2 on Bobby. And I think Bobby's going to be something he's going to have to really work to solve and fix. But like, give Swerve something to chase after besides a belt and besides Hangman, because we're getting to the conclusion of the Hangman chase, and so let's let's give him a new chase to follow after, a new car, if you will. And that leads me to his tag partner, not tag team partner, but his tag partner and associate through fighting against the Syndicate, Will Hobbs. And we need to get Hobbs to where he needs to be as a big man, in my opinion. Hobbs, he had, like I talked about earlier, that TNT title reign and the meat match with him, the triple threat with him and Joe and Wardlow was fun. I wanted more out of it, even a little bit more out of it, but fun. And when I look at that match and I look at the potential he had and the energy he had from that reign, I need that but more. And I need him to be grow. I need us to grow the brand. I need us to grow the character. The Oakland vignettes when they were trying to bring him back in the Book of Hobbs vignettes, I like those. I would love them to tease him join the syndicate, but not to join the syndicate in the end, and to then battle against them alongside Swerve in some tag matches, like I stated earlier. Maybe they get a third, and then through their third, they're able to then go after the trios titles, which I'm sure the Hurt Syndicate will have at some point. So have them face them for the trios titles, maybe have a little back and forth with the belt, win them, lose them back to them, but give them the opportunity to grow Hobbs. And I think one of the big combination parts of this feud with the Hurt Syndicate will be him having to go jump back to the previous feud he was in with the Death Riders. And I think Shelton and Hobbs in a triple threat will go after Wheeler Yuta, who will have beaten DG for the world for the wolf for the not saying that he can't be, but for the TNT title, because DG will beat DG better beat Jack Perry. And when DG beats him, I think DG will eventually drop it to Wheeler Yuta because they're forever rivals as well. And so having him drop it to Wheeler Yuta, Wheeler then having a little run with it and then dropping it to Hobbs in that triple threat, and Hobbs being able to get it away from Shelton, and then him and Shelton having a little feud, and then I even want after Bobby initially gets away from the Death Rider feud, I want him to have a couple matches with Hobbs. Hobbs loses to him, but that's what initially starts the whole, hey, I want you to join the Hurt Syndicate. Here's a card. And Hobbs is like, nah, I want to be my own man. I got my own book to write. So I got my own chapters to get through. So nah, it's about me. I'm gonna work with people. I can trust people, but I'm done with these factions because he was a part of Team Taz. He was technically a part of Cody's team before he turned on them. And then you had him go to QTV, and then he's been a part of the Don Callis family after that. He doesn't need a group anymore. He needs to solve the problems with the Don Callis family. Then he needs to go ahead and get that TNT title and start putting up some challenges, pushing that meat concept. If you ever want to push that meat concept and give it to Hobbs and let Hobbs be the meat man. So that way you're creating almost like a new Bobby Lashley, but it's with his own identity, and it allows him to have his own characteristics that even if he was to leave AEW in the future, I don't think of, oh, he's a Bobby Lashley clone. Oh, he was AEW's meat man. That was the guy. He was putting the matches down. You see you see him right there. He doing ready to smash him. So he's doing his thing. So let's get Hobbs to where he needs to be. And overall, my goal with this whole conversation, this whole thing in the first place is I want to see people rise and get to where they need to be. I want to see a boom. As a fan of AEW, I love attending the shows, and I've been to, I think, 11 shows for the company already. Nope, that's a lie. I've been to 9. But with those 9 shows, 4 pay-per-views, and a bunch of other collisions, dynamites, and other shows in between, I just want to see the company succeed and grow. And I think this is a way to create that alternative feeling again for AEW. And so, hey, let me know, comment below. What do you think about this? Who would you name as pillars in this scenario? What would you like to see out of the stories? Where would you like to see the stories go? Hit like, hit subscribe because I'm trying to get to a subscriber goal of 30 subscribers. So please help me get there if you can. And like I said, drop a comment below, share this video with somebody who's a wrestling fan, share with this video with somebody who used to be a wrestling fan and see how they feel about it. Hey, I'm here to drive the discussion and I want to hear people's thoughts and feelings. And so let me know on the other side, y'all.